There have been a myriad of shows and movies illustrating the dangerous nature of the U.S. prison system. Typically, these shows regard male prisons and either turn sexual assault into a joke or use it as a strong potential danger. Generally, women are ignored in these scenarios for one particular reason. The utensil of rape is overwhelmingly a penis, and the prisoners in female prisons typically do not have one. Of course, this assumption ignores the potential threat that male prison guards pose to female inmates, but overwhelmingly, women in female prisons do not rape each other. In fact, sex is illegal in prison, which makes what's going on in California especially appalling. Starting in January of 2021, California passed SB 142, otherwise known as the Transgender Respect, Agency, and Dignity Act. This law states, "The term transgender is broad and inclusive of all gender identities different from the gender a person was assigned at birth, including but not limited to transsexual, two-spirit, and mahu. Non-binary is an inclusive term used to describe individuals who may experience a gender identity that is neither exclusively male or female, or is in between or beyond both of those genders, including but not limited to gender fluid, agender, or without gender, third gender, genderqueer, gender variant, and gender non-conforming." The term intersex is a broad and inclusive term referring to people whose anatomy, hormones, or chromosomes fall outside the strict male and female not binary. The United States Supreme Court recognized that incarcerated transgender individuals are particularly vulnerable to sexual abuse and sexual harassment, and that disregarding the known risk to a transgender woman constitutes deliberate indifference in violation of the federal Constitution. In California, a study of the state's prisons found that the rate of sexual assault for transgender women in those prisons was 13 times higher than for men in the same prisons. Transgender men in California prisons also report high rates of sexual and gender-based violence, harassment, and discrimination. Official data collected by the Federal Bureau of Justice Statistics confirmed that nationwide, incarcerated transgender individuals experience exceptionally high rates of sexual victimization. In a 2011-12 survey, almost 40% of incarcerated transgender individuals reported experiencing sexual victimization while incarcerated, compared to 4% of all incarcerated individuals. A congressional study found that instances of rape often go unreported, and that most prison staff are not adequately trained or prepared to prevent, report, or treat inmate sexual assaults. 40% of transgender women respondents reported harassment from other incarcerated individuals. 38% reported being harassed by correctional officers or staff. Correctional officers and other incarcerated people predominantly refer to transgender women as men, using masculine pronouns, and transgender men as women, using feminine pronouns. Gender transition is a deeply personal experience that may involve some combination of social transition, legal transition, medical transition, or none of these. Some transgender, non-binary, intersex people experience gender dysphoria that requires medical treatment, while others do not experience gender dysphoria. Due to safety concerns, inconsistent medical and mental health care, insufficient education and resources, and other factors, incarceration often serves as a barrier to gender transition. Regardless of the ways in which a person chooses or is able to express their gender or to take medical, social, or legal transition steps, they deserve respect, agency, and dignity. In other words, the state of California recognizes the inherent danger that transitioning individuals may face in prison and lists some statistics to support this claim. No argument here. Trans women who have transitioned, or men who are gay, are at high risk of assault in U.S. prisons, and even convicts shouldn't face sexual assault while serving their sentences. Section 3, Section 2605 is added to the Penal Code and covers the right to have one's gender respected pronoun-wise. It states, "During the initial intake and classification process and in a private setting, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation shall ask each individual entering into the custody of the department to specify all of the following: the individual's gender identity of female, male, or non-binary, whether the individual identifies as transgender, non-binary, or intersex, the individual's gender pronoun and honorific. A person incarcerated by the department may not be disciplined for refusing to answer or for not disclosing complete information in response to the questions pursuant to the section. At any time, a person under the jurisdiction of the department may inform designated facility staff of their gender identity, and designated facility staff shall promptly repeat the process of offering the individual an opportunity to specify the gender pronoun and honorific most appropriate for staff to use in reference to that individual, in accordance with Subdivision A. Staff, contractors, and volunteers of the department shall not consistently fail to use the gender pronoun and honorific an individual has specified in all verbal and written communications with or regarding the individual that involve use of a pronoun and honorific." Again, no problem here. There's no reason not to respect someone's wishes and call them by the pronouns they ask for. However, the following section raises some concerns. Section 4, Section 2606 is added to the Penal Code to read, An individual incarcerated by the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation who is transgender, non-binary, or intersex, regardless of anatomy, shall be addressed in a manner consistent with the incarcerated individual's gender identity. If lawfully searched, be searched according to the search policy for their gender identity or according to the gender designation of the facility where they are housed, based on the individual's search preference. If the incarcerated individual's preferences or gender identity cannot be determined, the search shall be conducted according to the gender designation of the facility where they are housed. Be housed at a correctional facility designated for men or women based on the individual's preference, including, if eligible, a residential program for individuals under the jurisdiction of the department. These programs include, but are not limited to, the Alternative Custody Program, Custody to Community Transitional Reentry Program, Male Community Reentry Program, or Community Prisoner Mother Program. Have the perception of health and safety given serious consideration in any bed assignment, placement, or programming decision within the facility in which they are housed pursuant to paragraph 3 of subdivision A or subdivision B, including but not limited to granting single-cell status, housing the individual with another incarcerated person of their choice, or moving the individual or individuals who pose a threat from any location where they may have access to the individual who has expressed a safety concern. If pursuant to this paragraph, the individual is not granted an alternative based on their perception of health and safety, the department shall document the reasons for that denial and share them with the individual. If the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation has management or security concerns with an incarcerated individual's search preference pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision A, or preferred housing placement pursuant to paragraph 3 of subdivision A, the Secretary of the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, or Secretary's designee, shall, before denying a search preference or housing the incarcerated individual in a manner contrary to the person's preferred housing placement, certify in writing a specific and articulable basis why the department is unable to accommodate that search or housing preference. The Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation shall not deny a search preference pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision A or a housing placement pursuant to paragraph 3 of subdivision A based on any discriminatory reason, including but not limited to any of the following: the anatomy, including but not limited to the genitalia or other physical characteristics of the incarcerated person, the sexual orientation of the incarcerated person, for denial of a housing preference pursuant to paragraph 3 of the subdivision, a factor present among other people incarcerated at the preferred type of facility. The incarcerated individual shall receive a copy of the written statement described in subdivision B, and within a reasonable time following the individual's receipt of the statement, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation shall provide the individual with a meaningful opportunity to verbally raise any objections to that denial and have those objections documented. If an incarcerated individual raises concerns for their health or safety at any time, their housing and placement shall be reassessed. I know that was a lot of legalese, so let's be clear and recap. All of the California trans-identified males are being sent to this one overcrowded prison. CCWF houses 2,640 people, and it was only meant to house 2,004 people. They are already at 130% capacity, which means adding these individuals, approximately 300 men, will result in 150% capacity. 300 out of 2,940 inmates will be men, or roughly 10% of the population. Having sex in these prisons is illegal, and the recent arrival of sex-related resources, condoms and birth control, information about abortion and adoption, did not exist prior to this bill, as there was no reason to have them. Of these 300 trans-identified males, the vast majority have intact male genitalia, and over half of trans-identified males in prisons are sex offenders, most of which are serving time for rape or child sexual abuse. As stated in the bill above, they can choose their roommates, and female inmates are not permitted to refuse to room with them. While transgender women in male prisons face sexual abuse and mistreatment, this is certainly something that should be addressed and prevented. There are more people willing to take advantage of this bill in order to access women than there are who actually need it. The women in this prison know this and understand that this bill will result in a myriad of rapes and sexual abuse, as similar programs already have in Canada. The inclusion of condom dispensers and posters about post-birth options are essentially a terror campaign, telling these prisoners, these sex tourists are coming to rape you and we won't intervene. So, what should the solution be? Should the safety and lives of women be threatened in order to validate identities of self-identified and physically male inmates in order to protect the tiny minority of trans women who are at risk in these prisons? The answer and solution are both obvious but unlikely to be heeded. Those who identify as transgender should be offered a separate prison or ward from other prisoners, both male and female. This will prevent women from being needlessly harmed through state-sanctioned rape, while allowing those transgender individuals at true risk to remain safe. This solution would further prevent overpopulation in this prison and further weed out those who would self-identify as female in order to gain access to an impoverished population. But I leave the question open-ended, dear viewers. What do you suggest? Were you aware of this program or the risks this bill provided? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.